the rise of the Tomagotchi kids, virtual children that play with you, cuddle you, and even look like you, will be commonplace in 50 years and could help combat overpopulation. Unbelievable. AI expert predicts. If you read on in, it says these computer-generated offspring will only exist in the immersive digital world known as the Metaverse, which is accessed using virtual reality technology such as a headset to make a user feel as if they're face-to-face with the child. And scrolling through that, you can see some imagery of, there are some photos of what that, here's a mom with virtual reality glasses on feeding a digital baby. Look, the next one is a woman, a mom. Look at the glasses. I mean, it's so unbelievably Black Mirror disturbing, lifting up a small digital child. And people look at this, and I think to some it's intriguing. I think to some it's funny, and it's like, that's never going to happen. Oh, it'll happen. It's coming. It's absolutely coming. And I think others don't take a second. Some are horrified like I am, and they're like, what do we do? What do we do to protect kids? What do we do to protect each other from this mania? And then some don't really realize, I think, the full effects of this. I wrote a book a few years ago called #DoNotDisturb. And it delves into technology and how this new wave of technology that's happening now, not just with social media, but with these metaverses. I go into talking about a video game called Second Life. I don't know if you've ever heard of Second Life. It's pretty fascinating. I write about it in the book. It's basically an alternate universe, a digital universe where you can go into that universe and you can get married. You can have a whole life. You can have a partner. You can have intimacy. You can display intimacy on screen. You can own a business. And there were people who were spending hours and hours all day, their whole day, with the exception of, time that they actually had to sleep in the real world, immersed in this digital world and completely absent from real life. So there are people that never saw the sunshine outside, who never, didn't engage with their friends, who were becoming overweight because they were having no actual physical activity in the great outdoors. Deeply, deeply disturbing stuff. There were people who were having affairs in the game, and their spouses in real life, their partners in real life were learning about it and confused and not understanding what was happening. This stuff is incredibly destructive, incredibly destructive. And what it does, all of it, by the way, is it tears at the fabric of what connects us as people. So that interpersonal connection, the touch, the eye contact, all of that is necessary to build you and to build a community and to build a sense of shared and common purpose and to build a sense of, I get where you're coming from. I don't agree. Civility is built that way. All of those values that you come to hold dear are built that way. Loyalty and humanity and caring for your neighbor. That doesn't exist if you detach from everyone and you exist in isolation in a fake world that is meant to somehow gratify you in ways that the real world, that's a little bit harder. It's a little bit harder in the real world, right? Because actually interacting with people is harder. That real world doesn't make it so easy. So let's have a metaverse that makes it easy. Let's have a metaverse, in fact, where caring for your baby can just be all smiles and rainbows. Let's do that. So what's happening here is you're not building backbones in people. You're not building community between people. Young kids are losing basic skills. Kids don't even know how, by the way, to ask each other out on a date anymore because this is all they do. This. Oh, you want cowards. It's a nation of isolated, detached cowards. Cowards. It was hard in middle school. There were boys that came up to me in middle school at the dance. They had to take that deep breath. They had to get their, put their clothes in order. They had to, fist pump. I don't know if they did that back in the day. Probably with their buddies, and they had to be like, I'm going to go. I'm going to ask her to dance. I'm going to do it. They crossed that dance floor, beads of perspiration, just roll. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. In those moments, little boys became men gradually, little by little. In the moments where a young girl got rejected or anything, those moments that were hard, that were rough, that involved maybe you had a conversation with someone or a fight with a friend and you didn't handle it so well. That built character. That was a little small step toward you becoming a woman that could one day hold your head high and sit at a microphone like this and do this, or do whatever you do at home, or walk into your hair salon that you own and be a boss that day, or walk into that hair salon and do someone's hair. And when they don't like it, handle that moment, which we all know can be really hard. Hairstylist, man, you got it rough. You got it rough. It's not easy to do someone's hair when they're displeased. I'm just saying. Whatever your job is in life, whatever you do, you built that character from a very young age. And a lot of these kids are not doing that now. And these people who create these video games and create these alternate universes, they would love for you to be weak. And first of all, they want to make money, right? So they need you to leave your real life and embrace this metaverse so they can make money off of all of this technology. So it's a money game. They also program a lot of these games and social media and whatnot to get you addicted. They actually study behavioral psychology, and they go and study it and figure out how to program these apps so that you'll get addicted. So you're like a puppet. I'm sure they do that with the virtual reality games as well. So they need you addicted. They need you isolated. They need you like this. They need you abandoning real life, and they need you weak. Why? Why, you ask? Because a population that's weak is a population that can be controlled. A population that's disconnected from other people is a population that can be controlled. What happened during COVID? What did they do? They locked everybody. You got to stay in your house. You got to stay in your house. You got to isolate. Had that not happened, and look at places where it didn't happen the same way, like in Florida, where people had a little bit more, you know what they did? They talked to each other and they figured out that none of this made any sense. They recognized the shared humanity that they each had. And they said, you know what? This isn't my enemy. This person over here that got a vaccine and I didn't. This is just a person who made a different decision. They want you controlled. They want you to be a puppet. A puppet. And all this AI is all about that. It's all about that. And the antidote to this is community, is interpersonal, relationships, is eye contact, is all the hard stuff, right? Because all the hard stuff builds you up as a person. So, and be not mistaken, this stuff will break up families. It will create tension between kids and parents when kids are like, oh, this is what's happening now. This is what I need to be doing. You already see kids. Look at the obesity rate amongst kids now. One of the factors of that is that they don't get outside. I played with little sticks and abandoned, I would go into construction houses. I was a real tomboy. I would climb fences. I spent almost no time in my house. The little time I did spend with Nintendo was pretty boring. There wasn't a lot to do with the Nintendo back in the day. It's like Super Mario Brothers. You went in, you saw it, you conquered it, it was done. But what's going on here with these virtual friends you make who you don't know? Oh, your kid's talking to some virtual friend. Maybe it's a 60-year-old. Maybe he's a little weird. You don't know. You enter this world the way they want you to enter this world, you're not going to be able to handle the ups and downs of a grocery store run. You're going to be a weak, fragile, isolated, coddled, protected. I'd rather live in the safety of the metaverse than the really hard real life person. And that is a perfect candidate to be brainwashed and manipulated and controlled. So just so you know where this is going, parents, your kids want to play, get them outside. You also lose connection when you're in all this. And I know we're guilty of it too, right? I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you're guilty of it. We're all guilty of it because this is the way of the world now. You're in this all the time. You lose connection to the ground outside. You ever heard of those people that do grounding? Do you know what that is?
They take their shoes off, right? And they walk on the grass and connect with the earth. And
yep. People at home, do me a favor. You're by a beach. You're by some grass. Take your shoes off. Leave this inside. Do me a favor. Take your shoes off. Take a deep breath. Put your feet on that ground. If I sound crazy to you right now, so be it. Feel the difference. Take a break from this for 2 hours. I don't care what you have to do. You may be hyperventilating. When I go through and do not disturb, by the way, my addiction to technology, and I was literally sweating. I was like, there could be a message in there that's important. There wasn't. It was my mom, as I said before, what kind of tomato sauce did you get from the store that tastes like, family tomatoes? It was stuff like that. It'll wait. It will wait. Do it and tell me how you feel. Okay? Because you need to do it in order to realize that all this stuff being pushed on you is poison. You can do it in moderation. You can go on Twitter. We show you articles here. We're coming at you live right now. This is technology. But my perspective is not warped, and I don't want to go into a metaverse to escape the reality of what could be a really beautiful life with ups and downs and lessons that build a powerful, strong human being who has self-confidence and is out to conquer. It's not happening in the metaverse. And I'll tell you what, you find your confidence in the metaverse, you take a step back and you walk into the real world, you're going to feel this big because you know in your mind that it's not real. All right.
So, they're trying to get to the point where they can download people's consciousness to these metaverses, and you can revisit loved ones, right? If your mom passes away, your father passes away, a child passes away, God forbid. So how long do you think until we get to the point that these people enter the metaverse to go see their mother every day or their father every day and they never leave? And we get to a point almost like a social credit score where you then cannot see those family members unless you meet A, B, and C demand.
Right.
Right. And even if it doesn't go that far, the fact that these people will have it in their minds that they can, though the real life person is gone, they can still visit them in the metaverse, and then they have to leave. And you want to talk about a warping of reality, like you said. It's people will never be able to cope.
And also think about, everyone's lost someone in their life, right? People out there, if you've lost a parent, if you've lost a pet, if you've lost, heaven forbid, a child, if you've lost a loved one, a spouse, whatever it may be, that grieving process is hard. Mm-hmm. It's painful. It's filled with darkness at times, but you find a way to go through it. Everyone does. You walk through it. You pick yourself up. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you have the support of family or friends. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're at a point in life where you don't, and you only have to rely on yourself. You pick yourself up and you get through it. That person that comes out on the other side, what a warrior.
Oh yeah, it's absolutely
necessary.
What
a warrior. And that is the person that, when challenged in society by something as simple as a stupid mandate, says, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. That's not good for me. I'm not doing that. You pull that out of you change the dynamic, and suddenly that person doesn't go through that experience or goes through it in a warped way, never gets closure, never actually has to conquer an experience or an emotion, no matter how difficult or horrifying that may be. You take that out of the equation, you're left with a much weaker person who doesn't feel like, if the weight of the world falls on my shoulders, I'm going to squat and press it out. So just think about what's behind all of this. What's behind a technology that wants you addicted? I always think about, what's the long-term goal here? And the long-term goal is to have more people who flock to that stuff because they're afraid of the real world. Mm-hmm. Fear is a weapon. They're afraid. It's scary. It's hard. It's difficult. It's too challenging. It's too much. Breakups. Ugh, I don't need that. Let me just go get a girlfriend in the metaverse. It'll be simpler. Seriously. Lasting ramifications. And just, if you don't care for yourself because you say, you know what, I'm not going to do that stuff. I'm already past that. I'm past that age where that's appealing to me. I'm telling you, I want to get in a DeLorean and go back to 1985. So this is not my zone. But I have a child, and he's 2.5, and he's growing up in a world where, let me tell you something, my kid, true story, my kid we don't have an iPad for him. Okay. He has very minimal contact with TV, watches a little bit of Curious George. He loves it. He thinks he's a monkey. We'll get to that. We got to that yesterday a little bit. My husband's at home like, oh, there's a fun joke in there. Jeremy, I'm not telling your joke. It's not that funny on air. Just letting you know. Anyway, my child very rarely gets my phone. When we were driving from New York, we drove here. I drove from New York to Florida because I refused to mask my 2-year-old. I was like, it's not happening on an airplane. It's not happening. I'm not masking my 2-year-old. It's child abuse. I'm not doing it. So I drove here. And in the car, there were some rough patches. And a couple of times I was like, here's my phone. Do you know, I will tell you, this child mastered just the photos. I would put it on airplane mode. He was looking at the phone. He mastered the little let me widen it. Let me go here. Let me pick this. It was a matter of seconds. And he was a pro on this phone. I mean, way beyond me. Mm-hmm. I saw that and I said, this is a lesson in sociology. I can't believe what's unfolding. And my husband is very opposed to kids being around all this technology young. And he was like, but we had to sit for a second and just look at what had happened, that these kids, they're very vulnerable to this. And that's all they see. They see you on this all the time. They see the computers. They see all the colors. If you look at the cartoons, there's a reason I go back and have them watch Curious George, because the cartoons of today, it's like psychedelics. It's like lights and, oh my God, it's too much. I'm like, you want to watch a cartoon? We'll put Curious George. You can watch the Smurfs, the old Smurfs that I watched.
Right.
I told you I fancied myself Smurfette. Just saying. But you can watch that. You can watch Mr. Rogers. You're not watching this. I mean, it's like, burr, 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 burr. We put on the Bubble Guppies for like a couple of minutes. I was like, oh no, I'm out. I'm out on the Guppies. So just keep that in mind. They are more vulnerable because they also don't have the frame of reference. So if I had a normal childhood, I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. I had a whole youth that I had all those experiences of the high school dances and the interpersonal contact and all of that. So when stuff like this comes along, I'm inclined to question it. I'm like inclined to be like, oh, that's not my zone. I'll do a little. I'm on Twitter. I'll do a little. But I also know, like, I can sense like this was healthy. This isn't so healthy. I have a margin of comparison. They don't. All they see, they're inundated constantly. So just know they are, if you don't care for yourself, maybe you care for your nieces, your nephews, your children. They are absorbing this stuff in a very different way, and it's all they see and know. So we want children that are strong and independent and self-reliant, who live in the real world and play outside and understand the beauty of sunshine and sunsets and are able to have conversations with someone they date one day that are intimate and hard and challenging face-to-face. We don't want children who need to flock to a safe space or the metaverse to escape reality. If you like the short clip, you can catch another one here, or you can catch the full episode right here.